All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we move on, just have a few things to say. On behalf of the board and the school district, we were deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Terry Anderson, a distinguished member of the Batavia High School class of 1965, and a very proud veteran who served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam and with the U.S. Marines. Mr. Anderson was a resilient and intrepid journalist whose bravery and dedication were exemplified in his reporting from conflict areas and during his nearly 7-year captivity as one of America's longest held hostages. His legacy as a courageous advocate for truth and humanitarian causes continues to inspire us all. We remember the relentless efforts of his sister, who fought tirelessly for his release. And our thoughts are now with his children and family during this very difficult time. Mr. Anderson's remarkable life story reminds us all that even when coming from a small little city and town like Batavia, New York, there's truly no limits to the profound impact that an individual can have on the world. If I could now just have a brief moment of silence for Mr. Anderson, please. Okay. All right, next up, public to be heard. I don't see any, so I'll bump again. Good news. From high school, Jeremy Mettler, Anthony Consiglio planned and ran an after-school tournament for the video game Smash Brothers. The tournament was open to all students. This tournament included around 20 students and all had a great time. Multiple students told me about how awesome it was. From the middle school, Carolyn Kinney. 7th and 8th grade students had a great time at their Spring Fling dance on March 22nd. Thank you to everyone who helped out and gave our middle school students a great night. From John Kennedy, from Mr. Kessler, congratulations to Lily Kloss on a great art show. Our student artwork gets better every year. Lily makes great efforts to fill our hallways with student artwork. And then from Robert Morris in Jackson, Krista Lawton, a huge thank you to everyone for supporting our family reading night at Jackson Primary. Thank you to our readers, Molly Corey, Jason Smith, and Julia Rogers, our SEL teams for assisting in organizing, our teachers for communicating to families and volunteering, and our amazing support staff for assisting in such a great family and community event. So many people came together to ensure that our students had the best possible experience. And there's plenty of good news on our webpage, so please feel free to read the rest of that. All right, next up would be Mrs. Kelly Marciano, Special Education Update. Hi, Kelly.
Hello. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you. All right, so as I go through my presentation tonight, you'll see that I've updated throughout the strategic plan, kind of aligned everything that we've done this year back to the strategic plan, making sure that we're staying focused on that throughout our special education department. So the first section that I want to review is just our classification rate. So as you can see here, we've had an increase in students who are classified. We've gone from 276 last year to 283 this year, but we are also seeing an increase in the region as well, from 908 to 938. The state wants us to stay under that 15%, so we're still under that at 14. But some different things that we've noticed as to why our classification rate is increasing is because our multi-tiered system and supports process, students are being referred more to special education after they've gone through pretty rigorous interventions as well. So really showing that there is that need there. And the interventions that are in place are tier 3, high quality interventions. So students are coming from that way. We've also had a big influx of students moving to Batavia who have had IEPs from other districts. So we uphold those as well. And then we're also seeing a greater level of need since still returning from that COVID closure as well. We're seeing a greater gap with some of our students, especially more at that intermediate level, who really missed out on some of those foundational skills. So we're seeing that that need is greater, and then they're not responding to that intervention either. We're also seeing an increase in mental health needs with our students needing more specialized instruction with that and being really creative in some of the programming that we're doing for our students to really meet their needs. And then currently right now, we also have 29 students who are placed out of district in different specialized programs, which really also shows that level of need that we have. One area of focus that we focused on is the therapeutic crisis intervention and supports for our staff. We currently have 28 trained staff members. They range from staff across the whole district, so each building. We definitely have an increase in staff who are trained at Jackson, which I'll talk about in a minute why that is. We also have 2 district trainers now, myself and Greg Cole, who's one of our school psychologists. We're working on developing and providing the training related to new policies that have come out and things from the state as well on our workplace violence, and then also planning to provide more staff information to our staff in different pockets for de-escalation. Greg is really working on creating some sort of training for our staff that's really on those de-escalation trainings that our staff are asking for. He's had a great success providing these de-escalation strategies so far, training to our aides at Jackson and Robert Morris. So we want to continue that up through with the different buildings. So one thing with our 28 staff, we have the largest number at Jackson because we're seeing that's where our students are most dysregulated, is in those primary grades, which I think is also natural. Our kindergartners coming in don't know how to manage that environment yet. So we really want to support them in those moments. We've seen a decrease overall in restraints, and there's lots of reasons for that. One is because of training our staff. The other is we opened that 611 at Jackson. So we have 6 students in that classroom now. It's now full, which is great. And we're also using a behavior consultant to help. All right, off to our high school. One thing that we're really proud of is our 1211 programs at the high school. So as you can see here, we have our students out doing a variety of different supports through our community. Mrs. Jana Kessler has been doing a great job expanding our program this year. Today, she actually told me that TOPS is interested in supporting our students and having them come do some work study there. So we'll work on that for next year. They're working in a variety of places, as you can see, and we've expanded one of the things we love the most, the coffee cart. They're now going to John Kennedy, and hopefully going to have them come to Robert Morris soon. So behavior has been an area that we focused on a lot this year. We use a behavior consultant, Dr. Jennifer Wick. We also use our autism consultant. So Dr. Wick has provided a variety of staff development, as you can see here, to our staff. A lot of those are with our aides. Some of those are also with pockets of specific needs based on student needs. But she's also doing things like function-based thinking, supporting our staff with understanding behavior, and helping them understand that it's a form of communication that fills a need. She's also helped complete functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans. And then we continue to work with BOCES on our autism consultants. This year we have 4, and they're really making great connections with not only our parents, our students, and our staff. They're also providing training for teams, which has been really great to see this year. And then our preschool program. Currently we have 26 students in a full day program and 24 special ed students in half day programs. So we're servicing about 50 students, and then also an additional 11 gen ed students. Those students might not have been students who were in a program, whether it be the UPK program or at the Y. And then as you can see, we're also supporting right now 9 districts in 3 different counties. Kim Meriden is our psychologist who works closely with this program. She wanted me to share a success story with everyone. So she says we have a preschool student who started as a 3-year-old in our half-day 12-1-1. He moved to our integrated program and now has planned to move to the UPK full-day program next year, and he'll only be getting speech. And then her projection is that he will enter kindergarten as a non-classified student. So giving them those early intervention is really powerful for our students. You can see how quickly they can gain those skills, and then hopefully support them as they enter kindergarten as well. Next year we have 25 students right now who are projected already to be ready to enter the preschool program. We have 50 students on a wait list as well. So Kim and I will go through those waitlist students and look and see who can fill the slots that we have. We anticipate being full right in September. We also are hearing a lot of praise from our neighboring districts where we can support, even if it's 1 or up to 5 students. Leroy probably sends us the most right now. So they're really happy that we have this opportunity for our students. As we think about our students though coming from our neighboring school districts, we do have pretty transient population, so at some point some of these students might still become a Batavia student as well, so it's nice to service them now. And then we've worked a lot this year with our counseling group. So as we work through the professional learning communities, our PLCs, we decided to establish a counseling team or a mental health team. We decided to include the social workers, the psychologists, and the counselors together because they were really working on the same goal, but it felt a little disjointed. So we came together, determined a mission and a vision for our mental health team, and then they each determined a goal for the 2023-24 school year. And as you can see here, they're working on things like attendance, behavior, making sure that they're connected to outside supports, such as counseling or care management. And then they'll continue to work on the following things the remainder of this year and next year. Suicide prevention plan, counseling plan, and their lessons that they're doing, the attendance plans, school-based counseling assessments, and determining success criteria for determining when a student enters into a counseling group and then exit because they've shown growth. Oops. Our ongoing special education focus, so these will be the things that we continue to work on this year and next year. We've done a lot of training this year on augmentative and alternative communication. Some of our students use a device to communicate with everyone. And we've noticed that sometimes that device gets put on the floor and we're limiting their communication. So we've worked a lot together as a team to really make sure that that's at the forefront. And our staff has really bought into utilizing those devices. And it's great if you walk into the classrooms, you'll see the teachers having their own device, modeling with the student, and the student using it as well. Some of the first graders who have a device are much quicker than I am on a device, much quicker than the teacher. They're just very fluent, and it's a great way to see them communicate with everyone. We've also worked on adding student voices to CSEs. So Molly Grimes, one of our speech pathologists this year, created a document for our students at CSEs where they go through a list of questions. It's been very powerful to hear what the students think about their education, even our students using a device. So for example, I had one student who primarily communicates using a device, and he was able to tell us what he likes about school, what he's looking forward to, and what he wants to do after school. We've also encouraged our special ed teachers to continue that as well next year, taking feedback from families, wanting to know what goals their children are working on next year. We're also working on professional learning communities in our 12-1-1s to make sure that we have a consistent curriculum for reading and making sure we're thinking about functional reading skills. And we continue to work on and collaborate with outside agencies with supports. And we'll also continue working with community schools. We held an outreach night that was well attended and able to get people connected with the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, and we'll continue to do that again in May. So that's our update for special ed. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a really quick question.
Sure.
The suicide prevention, are you guys aligned with the task force with Sugane?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a couple.
Sure.
Any special ed child that we keep right here inside our district, am I right?
So we have 29 who go to a different program outside
Go
of
to
the
a different
district.
program
Yep.
outside.
Yep.
And the reason for that is that we can't offer them what they need.
Yeah, so some of them need a much more highly structured program, such as, the most recent is our 611 students who need a therapeutic approach that has a social worker attached to the program, a clinical psychologist, sometimes like our BOCES offers that, so they need more wraparound support than what we have here.
And when we send these kids out, we're taking care of that, the cost for all
Mhm.
those things.
Yep, and we also provide the transportation as a district.
Which is, again, and you can speak to the aid that we get on that too. So if they're high-cost students, we get aid on that, and we get on the transportation as well. So
Okay.
there is an expense initially, but then we receive
then we
the
get
aid.
it- we get it back.
We get not all of it, but most of it.
We really think that through too, like what's the overall cost and benefit for our students on whether or not, so like our 611 at Jackson, we saw a better cost to have them here as 6 students and having that teacher versus sending 6 of them to a different program.
So we do everything in our power to try and keep them here. and stuff.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's where Dr. Wick comes in too. A lot of times before I'm ready to make that determination of a different placement, I have her come in as well to look at the behaviors and just double check and make sure that we're doing everything possible to support them here or keeping them as close as possible to Batavia. Any other questions?
Do you find that there are students that move into the district that need a lot of resources? And when that happens, where does the funding come from?
Yeah, so we uphold the IEP when the student comes in so that it's the same. So one example is we had a student who moved in who was at an out-of-district placement. We continued that placement because it was in the best interest, and then we fund that and it's aidable depending on the program. If we have a similar program like our 611, some districts don't have 611, so we would take them in and not send them out of district as long as they're appropriate.
And you find that it isn't a strain on the funds that you have?
It can be, yeah, for sure. We definitely, when we get a student in, sometimes we also lose a student who's at one of those high-cost placements. So it tends to balance out, but there's definitely always communication between my office and Andy's office every time we get one of those students, especially transportation costs, all of that added to it.
Can I just ask how many out of state?
We don't have any out of
Students
state.
come in for
Oh, how many come from out of state to us?
as a quarter.
Yeah, so those students tend to come straight here and we put them in a program in district. But this year we've had about 5 who've come from other states that we then have to go through the whole process. The state requires that we do a new initial CSE on that student to determine that they qualify based on New York State regulations. Yeah. Yeah, most of the time they still qualify, but we still have to go through that process.
Is that difference, because there's that big of a difference between states?
Yeah, the way that they write the IEPs are very different as well. So sometimes it's hunt and finding our similar language and trying to find where they are. We tend to get a lot of students in New York from Florida, so that IEP is a little bit easier, but when you get one from like Nebraska, they look very different than ours, so finding what they qualified for and what services they have. Takes a little bit of time to read through those, but we definitely want to make sure that's the right program.
Anything else? Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly. All right. Next up is Mr. Lang with our final proposed budget update.
Thank you. All right, so again, just going briefly over the timeline, which you've all seen before. Today, we're going to review the final proposed budget and hopefully adopt that budget tonight. Coming up, again, we have May 14th, we have a budget presentation, a budget hearing. That's going to be at 6 o'clock in the superintendent's conference room, and then the important date of May 21st will be the budget vote. So some key points that's included in the proposed budget for 24-25. This budget maintains the current educational program for the district, maintains current extracurricular activity offerings, It continues to provide additional instructional resources to students, and we'll kind of talk about that moving forward. It provides additional social and emotional services for students. There is included a reduction of staffing. That's a combination of really three factors that we've talked about at length during the budget process. One of those is the loss of COVID funding. The second is a review of the district's enrollment, projected enrollment. And then the third and fourth kind of combine attrition as well as the factors for state aid, most specifically foundation aid. Included in the budget is a tax levy increase that is within the district's maximum allowable tax levy increase or tax cap. And then overall, this budget is aligned with the district's strategic plan. So just some updates from the last draft of the budget that the board heard. We did identify and was able to reduce a 0.5 FTE administrative position. And then we also utilized some of the Office of Mental Health grant funds to add back some of those instructional support services that were on the docket to be reduced as a result of the loss of COVID funding. So that included 3 instructional coaching positions and 2 social and emotional learning positions as well. So we're looking at the 2 sides of the budget. The first side we'll look at is the revenue side of the budget. So the most important thing here that we want to really look at is the state sources. So the district finally received, the state finally enacted the state's budget. Included in that budget was state aid amounts for all school districts. Unfortunately, the funding for most school districts like ours, which are held harmless, there was no increase in the amount of foundation aid the district should receive for the 24-25 school year. So certainly it's not ideal, but it's something that we included in this revenue projection for the district's budget. So we've included for it, we've accounted for it, but certainly not ideal. In the form of real property taxes, we are showing an increase right at to the tax cap levy, which is 2.26%. So this is at the levy, but within the maximum allowable tax cap. And then appropriated fund balance and reserve. This is how we're making up the difference in the revenue and expense is through appropriated fund balance. And as we had talked about previously, we will need to increase that in order to balance the budget. So that's why you're seeing a significant increase in the amount of appropriated fund balance for the 24-25 school year. And then other revenue remains relatively flat, but a minor decrease. Looking at appropriated fund balance, I know we've talked about this a lot through the budget process. Again, we talked about the total increase of appropriated fund balance. So it went from $2.5 million last year to a little over $3.6 million this year. If you look at that, comparing it with the total amount of the general fund budget, you're looking at just about a 6% of the total general fund budget is going to be appropriated fund balance that we're going to have to use in order to balance the budget. And then finally, proposed expenditures. So the total expenditures really hasn't changed since the last time we met, except for the reduction and the utilizing the Office of Mental Health grant that we mentioned earlier in the presentation. So it's really a minor change from the last draft. When comparing the rollover budget to the current draft of the budget, so this is kind of working through the budget process. We started a rollover budget at just a little over $62 million. Through the budget process, we were able to identify a reduction of around $1.7 million. So we have our final proposed budget of $60,294,755. So again, this shows the total revenue and total expenditure. We are presenting a balanced budget. There is no gap at this point. The total amount of the general fund budget for 24-25, which is what you'll be hopefully adopting later on in the board meeting, is $60,294,755. On the ballot this year is, again, proposition number 1, which is the general fund budget. And then there'll be three board seats that are up for election this year. That will again be on the ballot. And again, this is all the information related to the annual budget and Board of Education vote. It will be Tuesday, May 21st, and it'll be from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Robert Morris or Dade High School. Any questions?
So in the whole, yes, so in the whole scheme of things, how does this affect the taxpayers in the city of Batavia? I mean, let's say per $100,000 of assessed tax.
Sure, if assessed tax, if the total assessed values and equalization rates remain unchanged, I believe the presentation prior, we said about 39 cents
Still
per
the same.
thousand. Yeah, so it's still the same. This still includes the 2.26% increase in the tax levy.
Okay.
Anything else?
So you said 39 cents per $1,000.
Yeah, so for 100,000, it would be
For these
$39.
houses that just got raised quite a bit for the city of Batavia, that just hit that assessment, keep in mind it's 39 cents per thousand of their assessment went up.
That's correct, but that's also assuming that there's no changes to total assessment. So if we take into account, a district-wide increase in total assessment, that changes the tax rate. So that will be accounted for when the final tax rolls come in. So this is just certainly a projection, but it's I would say the most conservative projection based on what the information that we have at this point.
So as we adopt this evening, if we adopt this evening, there's obviously going to be some, or could be some staffing changes and whatnot through the process as well, whether it's a staff member resigns or transfers out to another position. Could that affect the budget at all, or would that affect anything with that?
So it wouldn't affect the budget, except for the fact that there would be excess appropriations if, for example, that position wasn't replaced.
If we don't replace it?
Yeah, exactly. So what you're voting on tonight is just the total amount of total authorization, total amount that we could spend in 24, 25. We could certainly spend less, and then we're levying taxes as a result of that total amount.
So throughout the year, if the board decides to do some other adjustments in staffing and whatnot, as long as we don't exceed that.
Correct,
amount,
yep.
we're
That's a
okay.
statutory maximum that we can expect.
Can I ask actually how many staff were? I don't know.
How many positions
I don't
were
want to say,
eliminated?
yeah,
So,
accessing.
Positions, we can talk, positions, some of them, we had a slide, some of them were based on attrition, so we have a few we have a few retirees.
Mhm.
Those those have not been replaced.
Mhm.
We have 4 or 5 who are on the COVID grants.
Correct.
Mhm.
They signed 1-year agreements. Now, some of them, by the slide that Andy just showed there, some of them would have an opportunity to then possibly return to some of the other special positions we used for the grant.
Mhm.
And then the middle section, the middle one, look at my chart here, the middle one is based on enrollment. So even, say we had a perfect budget year,
Mhm.
some of those enrollment cuts we would have to look at anyway, even with attrition. So, I don't, what, total positions,
I think there were 13.
13, and then we brought, if you go back a couple of slides, we brought back
Yeah,
3 or 4 with the
Yeah,
grants.
13 total.
okay.
And then we had the half for the half admin we just talked about too.
And we're going to continue to monitor this class size increase. I know we discussed that it wasn't going up too much for eliminating some of these positions, our class sizes are going to increase too much on our staff.
Yeah, I think that's important to continue to monitor class size. We're also going to continue to monitor state aid. So that's something that the enacted budget included a foundation aid study. So the state is going to be looking at total foundation aid across the board, how that formula is created. So a lot of districts are really keeping a close eye on that. There's some factors that have never been included in the foundation aid formula that the governor has mentioned she would like to see included in that foundation aid formula, which could impact districts that may have declining enrollment or reserves beyond a certain level. So it's really something that I think the district.
We're on notice, I mean, so we should hear something by December. She's working with the Institute, I assume it's downstate, to study foundation aid. And she's hopeful that there's going to be some changes for that. One of the pieces that have frustrated governors over the years, not just our current governor, is they don't have a lot of control. So think they're trying to wrestle back some of that control to the executive as to how state aid is managed. So this group that's doing the studies at Rockefeller Institute, I don't know a lot about them, haven't heard much. So we should know something by December as to what those factors are going to be. I would expect and suspect that various lobbying groups, NISBA, for example, my group, NISCUS, the teachers' unions, probably are going to have some input on that as well. If not input, then definitely advocacy for it. So it is concerning. She wants to make sure that districts are properly using their reserves, staffing is matching enrollment, taxes, all those things. So, it should be an interesting process.
I heard that with the budget being passed over the weekend and looking at some projections for the next year is probably going to be worse. Chance of being worse than what this year was. So we need to prepare ourselves. And we are probably going to have to look at more cuts possibly, unfortunately. So just a heads up, everybody.
Well, I remember when Mr. Rosansky warned us about this year when he was here. So here we are.
Do you know if other districts compared to like our size district, are they, say, cutting 10 positions also, like admin? Do you have any comparison?
I can say, just based on my counterparts and understanding other districts, I think everyone is looking at the expenditure side of their budgets this year. Some districts, were forced to make those decisions this year, certainly more than Batavia had to. But some districts were able to kind of just absorb that and utilize their reserves and their appropriated fund balance to balance the budget. I think I can tell you without a doubt that across the board, all districts were looking very closely at the expenditure side of their budget this year. And if not this year, if they didn't have to make cuts this year, I would be hard pressed to think that they wouldn't need to next year. So.
Do you think that we did a good job as far as balancing the cuts and the reserve?
I think that the amount of appropriated fund balance that the district is utilizing to balance the budget this year is certainly something that's concerning. You don't want to see that amount of fund balance being utilized to balance the district's budget. It certainly can be done for one year or what I call an emergency situation in the short term, but it's certainly not a long-term solution to a problem of equity when looking at the expenditure side and the revenue sides of the budget. You never want to balance the budget using your savings account.
Right.
So, like I mentioned before.
It just seems in the pipeline that it's not going to get any better.
Yeah, so it's something I think what's important is the plan work. So I think that, and something that I'll work with the superintendent on moving forward is we'll develop a long-range financial plan.
So what we want to do, have a reserve plan in place so when these decisions come around, in the next 6 to 8 months, we'll at least have some guideposts to kind of help us guide those decisions. To the question Corinne just asked too, I know if districts are making cuts, Corinne, I know many of them are also not replacing positions as well. That's a easier pill to swallow, but we are going to work on the reserve plan over the summertime and get that going in the fall.
What I would like to see with that reserve plan is we start working our way from the top down. Let's look at all aspects, not just retiree and teachers and not replacing those positions. Let's look from the top down on if we have to look at the administrative level down on that.
Sure.
Yeah, that long-range plan can look at all aspects of what I would call the functional and object codes for the budget. So, we can look at those types of expenses.
I know, Corinne, to kind of answer your question, I know, I'm sure everybody sees the news, Hamburg was used, they cut, I don't want to quote this, but they were anywhere from 20 to 40 positions that were being cut. West Seneca West, same boat, they were cutting anywhere from 15 to 25 or 30 positions. The only school district that I'm aware of locally that didn't have an issue was where I'm from, my hometown of Jamestown. And how they managed to do it, I don't know. I guess I take my hat off to them for,
Do they tap into
when I was reading the article, it didn't say that they tapped into anything, they just found a way to make it work, so but,
Maybe they didn't have a huge reduction in foundation aid.
yeah, so, but they also may be looking possibly next year, they may have to look at something like, Andy was saying, there's some schools that may have done it this year, but next year, they're probably gonna be looking at it.
I don't know how many of you were around. I was a superintendent during the gap, it's called the GEA, gap elimination years. It happened in during the Great Recession of 2007, 2008. Districts maybe even have it prior to that. The GEA, gap elimination adjustment. So it would show up on our state aid runs as we were entitled, I'm going to use these numbers, we were say we're entitled to receive $5 million for the foundation aid, right? And then it will show another line, GEA, they will subtract a couple $1,000, couple $1 million from that amount. GEA is gone. That whole process is now over. Allison may recall that.
I was in California.
So you're all, yeah. So we're kind of coming back to that concept again. It wasn't a good time then, and it'll be challenging for us moving forward. But I'm confident in Andy and this board to make the right decisions.
Any other questions? Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
All right, next up, superintendent's report.
Just a few items. Thank you, John. A couple of quick items I want to recognize. Last week, we had several students who were recognized at the Youth Bank at the Genesee County Youth Awards. We also recognized our SROs. Connor and Maya were recognized along with the other SROs in the county. Also, Bonnie Duluth, who was one of our volunteers at the Heart of Kindness Center at Robert Morris, she was recognized as Volunteer of the Year. Some of you may know Bonnie. She's an active volunteer in that center, hanging up and folding items, washes them. She just is a great person to have volunteering with us there. So recognition to her and to our students. Very proud that our music department for the first time ever received one of the recognitions for Best Community for Music Education. Thanks to Melzy Case and our teachers who filled out surveys to get that recognition. A nice thing to have, long overdue. We had our ELA 3 through 8 assessments last week. They were done on the computers, online. Everything seemed to go as well as expected with that. Math is coming up in a few weeks. Peyton, congratulations on Mr. Batavia. You did a fantastic job. You had the crowd hooting and hollering for you. And his 12 colleagues as well did a fantastic job too. It was a truly enjoyable evening. And Peyton did a really nice job. He sang a nice Fleetwood Mac song. That maybe put him on the spot and sing later on a board meeting. No. You're gonna pass? It really was a nice event. All the kids did a great job, and the top 3 were recognized, and they'll be getting their charity will be getting checks. Offhand, how much did we raise? Do you know?
$5,200.
And how much has been raised? Do you know that?
Total, we've raised over $43,000 over the last 11 years.
That's very good. Yeah, so good. Thanks to Andy for his work on the budget. He's just joined us in October, and he has dove right in. We're going to be looking at a webinar tomorrow from rural schools. If you have a chance, I don't know if you get the rural schools emails. You do get those? Good. Okay, I was going to send you that one. David Little, probably my go-to guy. I know Corinne knows him from their dad's days on the board. He really does the best job in making the state aid process understandable. And Andy and I are going to get on one of his webinars, tomorrow at noon. Nisbet's probably going to have one too, but I've always found rural schools to be the best. And I already talked about the state aid piece, and that's all I had, so thank you.
Any questions? Okay. All right, next up, student ex officio's report. Payne Woolard.
So, back onto Mr. Batavia. That was a couple weeks ago already, which is crazy to me because it feels like it was so much longer ago because of how much has been happening. It's by far one of the biggest highlights of my senior year. Even though I didn't end up placing, the event itself was just so much fun to be a part of. The bonding backstage with all of the different guys. Like, we, at that end of the night, got so close and we were having just such a great time supporting each other, and I'm so happy I've been a part of it. As I mentioned, we raised $5,200, which did beat last year's fundraising, which made us all very happy. And as I said, we've raised $43,000 over the last 11 years. In third place, we had Brian Calderon representing suicide prevention of Genesee County. In second place, we had Harry Southall representing the Batavia VA. And in first place, our winner was Elijah Abdella representing Genesee Cancer Assistance. It was such an intense night. It was so fun. All of the guys this year were so creative, and it was really such an equal playing field for all of us, and I'm so excited I got to be a part of it. Last time, I know I mentioned that hopefully we would get our sports teams more active because of the weather, and they're out there right now. I think it's either the baseball or the softball playing right now. I think baseball. But we're finally getting some more action from our sports teams because of the weather. As of writing this, which was on April 17th, the boys tennis team was undefeated and won both of their matches. The girls softball team was at 2-1, and both of the track teams were undefeated at 1-0. I'm not sure how accurate that still is, but ultimately our sports teams are doing amazing. And I highly recommend going and seeing some of the athletes in action, not just the teams I just mentioned, but any of the sports teams, whether it's the lacrosse team, whether it's the tennis team, whether it's the softball team, whether it's the baseball team. All of our athletes are just incredible at what they do, and it'd be an amazing way to spend your time to go see them.
Girls flag football.
Yes, girls flag football. I've got many friends who were on it the first year it started, and since I live right next to Vendetta, I've been able to just go over and watch some of their games. They are incredible, and I'm so happy they have the opportunity to do that finally. It's really hard to believe that we have less than 2 months left this school year, or at least for the normal school, like normal school day school year. I graduate in 67 days. That's just insane to me. I've been through this district my entire life, and in 67 days I'll have graduated from it. And I thank all of you, although I'm assuming you haven't all been on the board my entire time I've been through the Batavia School District. You guys, being here, you have shown me how much Batavia means to all of you, and just thank you for doing your best to support our district. And although senioritis is killing all of the seniors this year, we do have more fun things coming up. We have Decision Day for the seniors in just a couple weeks. We have our Spring Fling dance at the high school. We have Spring Fest, the senior trip, and of course the most important, prom. And I'm just so grateful that at this district we have all of these opportunities, and I'm really excited for the end of the year.
Thank you. All
We're
right.
grateful for all you guys. You guys are amazing students in whatever you choose, whether it's out on the sports field. You're amazing on the stage, but we have an amazing student body, so we thank you guys too.
Thank you.
Anybody else got anything else for Peyton? All right, next up is consent grouping. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items E through M? Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman, could I have a second? Mr. Roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay?
All right, next up is old business. Approval upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the 2024-2025 general fund budget in the amount of $60,294,755 is adopted and shall be presented at the May 14, 2024 budget hearing and voted on as proposition number 1 at the annual district meeting on May 21st, 2024. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman, can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Regal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay?
approve seeker type 2 action and resolution for the 2024-2025 capital outlay project. Are there any questions on that?
So the capital outlay project is, we're doing safety, and we're doing safety security upgrades at Robert Morris next year as part of the budget. So we have to, this is just the environmental process we have to go through to make sure that there's no impact on the environment.
Can I have a motion? Ms. Benedict? Can I have a second? Ms. Anderson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, new business. Approval of the property tax report card and real property tax exemption reports. Any questions? Can I have a motion? Mr. Roll, second?
Second.
Mr. Regal?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Resolution to update the 2023-2024 calendar to reflect an additional holiday to extend Memorial Day and have it be observed on Friday, May 24th, 2024. Any questions?
This is due to having excess days in the calendar, with only having one snow day this year. So this has been a customary practice, so pleased to recommend that.
So no more snow.
No more snow.
If you say so. We were stuck to a Saturday at the track meet, Corinne, so I don't know. Just jinx it.
Could I have a motion, please? Mr. Roll, could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Anderson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Approval of private school transportation request for the 2024-2025 school year. Any questions? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman, could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Benedict?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Approval of the federal funds procedure manual.
Sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to recognize Andy Lang for getting this done. It's been long overdue, something that we need to have in place to manage those funds appropriately. So thank you, Andy.
Any questions? All right, could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Benedict, could I have a second? Mr. Rowe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
2024-2025 Genesee Valley BOCES annual meeting notice, administrative budget, and board member vote. Any questions? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Regal, could I have a second? Mr. Rowe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Policy updates recommended by Board Policy Committee with request to waive second reading. Any questions on that? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman, could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Anderson?
All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay.
All right. The next up is discussions and other reports, and our curriculum and operations and business ops reports are all online, so please feel free to look at those. Next up, do any board members have any comments or anything they'd like to report on at this time?
I had a Genesee Valley School Board Association meeting on March 26th. It was at Pavilion Central School, which I'd never been in that school ever. Was very busy that evening. But anyway, there was a representative from NISBA that spoke to, well, it was not only people there, members there, but also Zoom. And of course, it was all budget talk. And when you mentioned, Jason, when you mentioned that there was possibly going to be this committee reviewing the foundation aid formula, one of the gentlemen that spoke said that he was afraid, he was hoping that that was going to happen. His name was Brian Fessler.
Yeah, he works for NISBA.
NISBA, he's a NISBA rep, said that he was positive that things were going to happen too, but he was very afraid that when it actually got looked into, that the governor was going to find out from this committee that there's so much that each of the school districts do for students across the board that they were going to halt the investigation because they're going to figure out that the government has to give the school districts more money, not reduce their aid.
Oh,
So that was his impression. But he did say that he also thought that they were going to do investigative foundation aid formula. Also, there was a question asked of him about, that was one of the reasons why I asked Mrs. Marciano about the funding, is that there may be a proposal coming at some point to allow districts to be able to have a fund for special education funding. Because many districts in the state end up with students that come in and they need the resources and they don't have the money.
you mean like a reserve?
Yes,
You're talking
like a reserve,
Yeah.
But nobody, he said, no one on either side of the aisle has taken that up as a proposal, but it was something that hasn't been discounted as, no, we're never gonna look at that. And then there was also a question asked about extending the waiver on the $35,000 cap on retirement for teachers.
I think that was extended or waived, so,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
that's your teachers and administrators,
Yes.
so that was, I think it was waived.
Yes, yes. So that, because we need so many substitutes and, and help in that regard. So it was a quite informative evening, meeting with this NISBA rep. But it's already a month since I went to that meeting and things have changed,
Yeah.
so. But when you spoke about the foundation aid policy or revamp, it is absolutely something that they're looking at.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, anybody else?
I think, just thank Jason and the leadership team on working on the budget. I know it's never easy to have a tax increase, but, I think you guys did a very good job reducing it down. I think $1,757,000, we reduced it from our initial talks. That's making a lot of sacrifices to get where we are. So thank you guys for the hard work on that. We obviously got more work to do with it for next year, so I think this was an eye-opener for a lot of us, and I think we can keep working to get it ready for next year.
Appreciate that, thank you.
I also had the privilege of touring through the schools the past 2 weeks. I would definitely recommend to the rest of the board, get into as many schools as possible, talk with the staff. It goes a long way. They want to know that we're there to listen, and I had some great conversations with the staff. Our administrators are working hard there. Maureen, Paul, and Nate gave me some great tours through, and like I said, I had some great conversations with staffs that I think they appreciate us more than what we know we come through there. So if we can, I know all of us volunteer for here, but if you can find a half hour to walk through the buildings, the staff would appreciate it. That's it.
And that's really easy to set up. Typically what happens, you can send an email to the principal, copy me into it, and the principal will work with you on arranging a tour. So I know John has done his tour before as well. He went to the high school. Barb has done it before too, so.
That's how it lunches.
Yeah.
When I did my tour, I set it up, I took a day and I started off at the high school, went to JK, did everything all in one day, did all the schools, and had a very nice and thorough tour.
You got a hug from a little kid.
Yeah, hugged by a little kid, that was the highlight of my day. I would definitely, if you haven't had the opportunity to go to the schools, I would highly recommend it.
I have to admit, I tend to focus on the middle school, so you give me some inspiration on that. These emails, because they're all really, really good schools and really good administrators, good staff, so thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, all right, we're gonna have a call for executive session. We will not return to public session. Call to executive session will be, and I will need a motion to move into executive session for matters relating to the medical, financial credit, or employment history, or a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rego, could I have a second? Mr. Roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?